Hi guys, thanks for tuning into the channel. After a week I decided I'd head off down to the dealer and pick up this Royal Enfield 500 trials and headed off today on the 7-hour return trip. Just got back a while ago, so I haven't even had time to fit the mirrors to it, and that'll go later on, maybe later on today or early in the morning when I do a couple of more mods to the bike and before I head out on the first test run on the bike. But the wife, first impressions of the bike was it's a pretty little bike and got a bit of a laugh out of that one, but I suppose when you think of it, when you look at these trials bikes, all they really are in one way is just a classic 500 in a different dress, or wearing a different dress, so they're no different to any of the other 500s that have come out apart from that. They seem to be putting them together. Well, this one here appears to be put together and fit and finish up on par, I'd say, with the Interceptor. There were a couple of points on close inspection of the bike I wasn't really impressed with, you, especially when you think in Australia these bikes retail at $9,200, and for $1,000 extra, or not even that, $500 extra, you can pick up an Interceptor. But I'll give you a bit of an example here. So if you look at this chrome surround, which is really only a dummy, it doesn't do anything. In the old days this used to be metal, but they got cheap Enfield going back I think in roughly around 2016, and they put plastic. So I first got on the bike and heard the rattle. I'm pretty sure you can hear that. It won't affect it because I know how to fix all this stuff, so it's not really worrying me, but you know, that's the only plastic on it apart from that. And around the same time they also went plastic chain guard too. Now if you've got any interest in these bikes, like any Enfield at all for example, and you're thinking about it, you know, why not subscribe to the channel, because I'm going to go through the whole run of Enfields from 2009 right up to 2020, and I'm going to tell you all what I know about them, which may save you from being stuck out along the road on one of these bikes, or if they break down, and it won't be nothing major, it'll be just a stupid inexpensive fix which will get you out of the jam. It's only just a matter of, you know, something like, you know, if they would have outlaid an extra 50 cents here or 20 cents there, which would have saved a lot of problems. Now, if we go back to this particular bike, when they first came out, or when I had my first one in 2012, the regulator rectifier sat here. Then they moved it here, just in front of the ECU box. Then in the first Euro 4s I had, they brought it down right behind the box. Now this bike's a 2020 model, and believe it or not, the rectifier regulator is back here again. You might have a quick look at the compliance plate where it comes in at February 20. There's a couple of mods I want to do to the bike. I want to go over the bike first and check everything's tight on the bike, and there's no trouble with the steering on it, anything like that, because what you've got to remember, just because you buy one of these bikes from a dealer doesn't mean it's properly prepared when you get it, because on two of my new bikes I had problems with the steering head where the bike wouldn't steer. I had trouble with throttle position sensor, a couple of other sensors, pieces not connected, and you don't want to go out on the road and be caught out the first time and be stuck out along there and wondering what's going on. So if you were planning on buying one of these in any model from 2009 up to the Euro 4 version, well, if you go looking for one, I'll show you how to avoid problems in this area here, the tank, what to look for in the motor, down here in the casing, in the frame. I'll show you where to look for in case you get onto a bike that's got a cracked frame that you're unaware of. In the front end, what goes on in that headlight housing, problems which can occur in this ECU box, Another one in the battery box. Well, the silver itself is really a nice colour, so it's quite a nice looking silver, and the chrome is really nice on it. So when you look at the paint itself and the chrome tank really looks apart, and the badges look like they came straight off a 650 Interceptor. The green, when you actually see it, like I looked at a few videos, YouTube videos in the beginning, and the green is sort of, you can sort of take it and leave it. You either like it or you don't. But I never actually saw a red in the flesh. And, you know, some people jazz up the colour of their videos to make them look better than what they are. So what you are seeing in this one, natural colour. If you're here for the first time and you're wondering about Enfields, it's a 499cc, 27 horsepower, running 19-inch front, 18-inch rear. Okay, so we'll have a look at this bike and see what you get for $200 more than the basic model. Well, for a start, you get these nice rubber gaiters at the front, and they're topped off with a chrome surround. If you had to go and buy a standard one and fit these gaiters, it's a pretty involved job. You have to pull the forks right out of this bike to get in there and do it. So, you know, if you couldn't do it yourself, it's going to cost you at least a couple $100 or more to get it done. Then after that, you've got these new style indicators. This is the first C5 ever to have these gaiters fitted as standard. Going back in the early days, going back say 2010 or 11, the G5 had the gaiters as standard, but never on a C5. When you actually see them on a YouTube video, they look like they sit up a lot more than what they are, but I was just sitting on the bike, and they don't appear to be that much higher than the standard one at all. This little bar support, well, that's an option, and you know, that's something that comes over from the Interceptor, so that's another little plus there. But if you have a look at this tank, it is really nicely finished. Look at this. Come in, take a look at it. It's nicely detailed too. Now, there's nothing fancy about the exhaust when you look at it. Sure, it comes down here and it's upswept at the back, but all it is a classic 500 stock exhaust, upswept, and that's all there is to it. This is a really nice little rack, and it seems fairly sturdy too, and I think this one here is as good as any, so I'm pretty happy with that rack. So if you look around here at the back, once again, you've got your indicators there. It looks like they come off the 650 Interceptor, and also the tail light too. So if we go over to my Interceptor and look at those, they're virtually coffee. I might just give you a slow pan over the bike and then into the motor. Still get yourself a chrome mudguard at the back. I don't know whether I'd keep this bit at the back where the mud flap comes down. It may go, or might end up throwing it off, I'm not sure yet, but a pretty little bike. So when you look over this side, and we can come into it. Now, not long ago I found out that they were going to do their end of their run on these Classic 500s, and believe it or not, Classic 500 is my favourite bike to ride out of all the bikes I've had over the last 8 years. These are the ones I really love. I just really like these bikes, and they're my favourite regardless. I mean, I've had that many good memories on these, plus I've had a few bad ones too, but you know, you got to take the good with the bad, and these bikes really give you more smiles for miles, I'd say, because what I like about these bikes, you can go out on the road, pull up, get off the bike, walk back 20 feet, look back, and you'd say to yourself, geez, that's not a bad looking bike. I can get on the Interceptor and go out, or I can get on the KTM or any of those other bikes, when I had the Triumph Scrambler or a few of the others, and they're different sorts of bikes. This bike reminds me of a new bike born old. So you're buying a new bike, it's 50-year-old virtually to look at, but you don't have to do all the repairs on that 50-year-old bike, but you will have to do some repairs, and you've got to learn the fact that you will have to do them yourself. 8 years ago, they were a bit of a nightmare, and I knew what faults to look for, where they were a bit tight at the factory and didn't want to spend money to fix them for just a few cents here and there. And I found out that, like, it doesn't cost much, apart from a bit of time, to go in and check these items. And even if you buy a second-hand one, same thing again. If you can go in and fix them, just a bit of time to do it, and your bike will be classed as a lot more reliable compared to if something goes wrong and you're out along the road and you break down and then you just don't know what's going on, and next minute you've got somebody out there on the back of a ute to help you throw it on the back and take it back home. Now, the Euro 4s run a little bit leaner than the 3, but they run better. And when I found out that they were going to discontinue these and it's the end run, I just thought I'd have to come back in, buy another one of these bikes so I could get out there and enjoy it at least one more time, because these are such a fun bike. So if you were out on the fence now thinking of buying a bike, you've got the money in hand and say, well, I buy a second-hand and new one, don't hesitate. While they're still available, go straight out and buy a new Euro 4 and you won't regret it, because they got all the upgrades compared to the older models. They improved them little by little every year, and you're getting your money's worth that way. If you can't and you want to buy an older model, doesn't matter, you can still hang around here and I'll show you what to look for, and you can still make that into a pretty good bike. And what I mean by a pretty good bike, I mean a pretty good reliable bike, because even this one's a 2020 doesn't mean it's going to be a reliable bike. I've got to go in there now and check things on it, and I will have to check things later on too, because these things will go, some of the things on this bike will go wrong just like it did on the previous model, and it has on every model, because they've tried to cut costs for just a few cents. So the idea is fix up that problem. So, and what I also like about this bike is the ABS braking system. Really nice ABS braking system. I like that. Between the ABS, the Euro 4 runs a bit lean. Now if you ask me, will I be running sports exhaust on this bike? No. I'll be just using it stock standard, because I learnt my lesson with those Euro 4s, and actually one only lasted 800 kilometres, the one I put the sports exhaust on, and they've got to be running correctly, and that'll be another story on my next video. So I plan on putting out lots of videos on these particular bikes and fixes or things to look for, troubleshooting, all that sort of stuff. So if you're here and you want to sort of find out something in that line, hang around, subscribe, and that's about all I think I can give you on this today. But I'll put the mirrors on. I won't be starting this bike today. There's a couple of things I've got to do to this bike, add to it, then go over the bike thoroughly, then I'll take it out, and hopefully it'll start its life in the best possible way that I think it can, and I'll get a good run out of it. So once again, thanks for calling in, taking a look, and hopefully you'll like what I put together, and just come back and view. The next one will be what I do to the bike before I kick off, and we'll go for a run on it. Cheers.